Morning, Jim McKinnon here with Money Management. Interesting articles on this newspaper called Investing Today. It says billionaires invest millions to drill for copper and other critical metals. Uh, we've been also. It's got an article: soaring inflation, green energy boondoggles, and out of control government spending creates a perfect storm investment opportunity. And again, they're talking about precious metals. And this is something that I've been talking about for the last year, close to a year. Folks, if you're not into precious metals, you're making a big, big mistake. Now, we're not suggesting you put your entire portfolio into precious metals, but somewhere between 10 and 15%. Let me show you on the back here. You can see what gold prices have done. This is from 220 to 222, silver prices and copper prices. Kim, can you see that?
I can.
You see it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that's the way it is, and you got all these billionaires, and I don't know if that's a reason. Certainly, just because the billionaires are invested in this, there's no reason for you to. But usually these guys are pretty smart. They wouldn't be billionaires. And there's a whole article here about some of the billionaires and what they're investing in. And they're all invested in precious metals. That's the bottom line. Here it is right here. Billionaires are going on the hunt for green energy minerals. And that's a picture of the ones that are doing it. Anyway, if they're doing it, you might want to think about doing it. I did it a good while ago. I'm very, very pleased. And, I'll be glad to help you get into it. You get into it for as little as $5 grand. Anyway, enough about that. We'll talk about that later. Here's something I found kind of interesting. The government Congress just passed one of the biggest spending bills in history. And somebody called them to ask them, if they could explain it, and they said, no, we can't. Wrong answer. Right. I remember Nancy Pelosi one time said, oh, this big, I think it was Obamacare. And somebody said, well, Nancy, tell us how that works. She said, I don't know how it works. Just vote for it, and then we'll figure it out. And that was her exact quote. I'm not making that up. Just vote for it, and then we'll figure it out. Well, they never did figure it out. Anyway, we're going to be talking about this bill over the next couple of days. And I think you really want to tune in and listen to it, because I've done a lot of research. I've got a lot more research to do. And hopefully I'm going to help you understand how these crooks are swindling us. They're taking our money. They're not spending it on what they say they are. And if you think they're doing you a favor, if you think they're goody-goody, you're absolutely crazy. Anyway, I want to tell you about an interesting TV program. I think it's on Netflix. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is. It's got to be on Netflix. It's called Lonely. Is that what I told you, Kim?
I think it's Alone.
Alone, A-L-O-N-E. And what it is, they took 10 people. I believe there was 3 women and 7 men, and they put them on an island. But they were far enough apart they could not get together and collaborate. They had to make their own decision. Now they put them out there in kind of, not exactly the wintertime, which would have been unbearable, but it's pretty close to wintertime. But they had to compete. First of all, they had to get shelter. Secondly, they had to get a food supply going. They had no food, no shelter. They had no weapons except a bow and arrow, and they had a knife. And they had a couple of other things. No matches. You had to make the fire the old-fashioned way to get the stick together. It wasn't sun shining, so you couldn't use a magnifying glass, which they didn't have anyway. But these people they were unbelievable resourceful. And they also had to contend with the predators, because there were black bears and grizzly bears, very plentiful on this island. And, guys, we're their food. We are their food. So that was a problem. There's mountain lions, and we're their food too. So they had to contend with all this stuff. Plus, one guy had some great traps. He put rabbit traps out, and he caught rabbits, and he could eat the rabbits, and that would carry him for a while. But then he found out that there was an animal, I forget which one it was, but some animal that figured out how to, where the tracks were, and the animal would run the tracks before this guy got around to it. So the animal, if they caught a rabbit, he'd get the rabbit. I mean, they really had some rough going. One particular guy was creative enough to build a boat. I mean, these guys had to have some building skills. Now remember, he had nothing. He had twine, he had a saw, so he had to cut his logs, tie them together to build his boat. But in building his boat, they had a big net they could use, so he could take the net further out in the, I guess I don't know what it was. It wasn't the ocean, I don't think. They could take it further out and have a better chance of catching fish, which he did. That gave him a big advantage. Other people did other things to get the advantage. The interesting part is that each person set their own priorities. Now, some people built a Taj Mahal place to live in. I mean, it was unbelievable. One guy had a bunk, and he had it off the. He put the logs in there and got it up off the floor, and he had a fireplace inside of his cabin that he built. And remember, they had almost nothing except a little saw. That was it. They didn't have a nail gun. Didn't have any nails. They had it tied together. They had twine. They tied it together. I mean, these people were unbelievable. And I guess they probably had some kind of experience in living outdoors before they let them go in there. Once a week, the medical people would come in to check them. And over time, some of them had to leave. The last one standing, by the way, got $500,000. And some of the people decided to leave on their own. They just couldn't take it anymore. But other ones, when the medical people would come in and check them, they were in such bad shape, mainly because of not eating, not drinking, that they made them leave, and they were not happy about leaving. But it's very interesting to watch that, and to watch how creative these people had to be. I mean, it's just you got nothing, and you have to make your priorities number one. You got to decide what's most important. I think probably getting a place to stay would be the most important, because that's when your energy's the highest. Because after you've been out there a couple of weeks and you're surviving on ants or whatever, which they survived on, you do whatever you got to do. Your energy goes down. You don't have the strength you had. So to carry those logs that you're going to cut to build your cabin, that probably would be number one. And most people did put that as number one. But very, very close. You got to have a food chain. You got to figure some way to catch fish, and that wasn't easy unless only one guy built the boat, and the other 9 people did not build a boat. They apparently didn't think about it. Maybe they weren't qualified. I certainly wouldn't know how to build a boat, so they didn't build a boat. But you got to figure out some way to get food, and if you don't have food, you got a real problem. But to watch that, then toward the end, after they had been there a month or maybe 6 weeks, you started finding people getting extremely lonely, and that's the reason it's called alone. And they were missing their family. Most of these people had had a spouse and young children, and they were missing the children. They were missing their family, and a lot of them just went home. Not a lot, but some just went home just because they were lonely, and that's the reason it's called alone. But it's very, very interesting. There's about 10 sessions. They last about an hour each, and you can go on Netflix. What's the other one besides Netflix, Kim?
I think it's on Discovery Channel now also.
Maybe on the Discovery Channel, but you can watch it. It's about an hour each, and it's very, very... Anyway, I hope you'll try that. I hope you'll enjoy it. And in the meantime, if you want to hear about this bill, please remember to give us, tune in tomorrow, and we'll show it to you. Hey, thanks for watching. This is Jim. We're gone.